Hello, my name's Terry Haines, and this is a walkthrough video for the Allied Health Resource Allocation Decision Tool. I'm one of the ReAD-iT co-creators, and I'm here today to show you how to use the ReAD-iT instrument so that you can maximize the value of the resource allocation decisions you're making. I'm currently using Google Chrome to use the ReAD-iT. This is the program that optimizes the usefulness of the ReAD-iT, and I'm also conducting this walkthrough using a PC, not a Mac. Using a PC will allow you to download a Word version of a report later on in the ReAD-iT, whereas a Mac, it will be inconsistent if you can do this. So let's begin. Let's start off by increasing the font size so that you can see a little bit more clearly all the information that will be on the screen, and we'll progress from the opening page of the ReAD-iT to log in. Into my account. Now, in your login page, you'll find a list of all the different reports that you've made previously in the ReAD-iT. As you can see, I've got a number of reports that are either in progress or have been completed. But for today's walkthrough, let's start a new report. When you start a new report, you'll see questions on the left-hand side of the ReAD-iT. Here we have question 1, which asks you to select the most appropriate option for your circumstance. On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see a question mark and a brief explanation as to the question that's being asked, and potentially also links to videos that might also explain the particular question and give you information that you need to help answer that question. For today's walkthrough, I'm going to pretend that we have a new or additional budget allocation. So I'm going to click on that radio button and then click Next, a progression button. Question 2, what is the catalyst driving a potential change? Well, in this circumstance, we have availability of $30,000 in our budget for next year. So we've got a bit of extra cash to spend in our budgets, and we want to figure out how we should best spend it. Are there any constraints associated with the potential change? No, there's no constraints, no contracts or agreements. It's not tied to any particular activity that might need to be pursued to receive that money. It's just departmental funding. Question 4, is this the right time for my organisation or working to be pursuing this potential change? Yes, we've got that money available, and if we don't use that next year, I'm pretty sure it'll be taken away from us in the following budget. Question 6, please indicate how many different ways you're going to consider to spend this money. For today's walkthrough, I'm just going to look at a couple of options. Going to use that up button to indicate 2 different options. Please record how you identify these options. Well, in this example, we had a staff ideas and discussion session at our annual retreat. The next question comes up with a large amount of red text. So from this point on in the ReAD-iT, you'll be asked to answer a series of questions specifically about each of the options that you have identified. You will now be directed to complete these questions for the first option you have identified. So for each of these options, here you can see option 1 and option 2 on the little menu. We'll go through all the questions for option 1, and then we'll go through all the questions for option 2. So the first question is, please name the option being considered for commencement or increased using the MEOP format. The MEOP format is explained on the right-hand side. MEOP means M, the magnitude of resource you're planning to allocate, and the time horizon for that allocation. I, the intervention or activity that you are planning to provide. O, the outcomes you believe the intervention will impact upon. And P, the patient population or condition that you're interested in allocating the resource towards. So the first option here that came up at our staff retreat was to commence a hydrotherapy group exercise program for people with osteoarthritis. Now, let's make sure we have used that MEOP format. M, the magnitude of resources. So we'll have to use that $30,000 amount. $30,000 to commence. I, the intervention, so that's the activity. Yeah, we've got that there. O, the outcome. So we haven't specified what the outcome is yet. To reduce pain, improve function and quality of life. And P, the patient population. Well, we've actually already listed people with osteoarthritis, so that's okay. We can leave it like that. So we've described that option. Let's click next and go to the next page. One of the things you'll notice now is that the term option 1 that we saw on the previous screen has been replaced with that MEOP statement, so that you now know that is option 1. And if you need to go back to the beginning of option 1, you can actually click on that as part of the navigation, or you can use the Show ReAD-iT Navigation mega menu. The ReAD-iT Navigation helps you to scan through the options that you're considering. Here we've got all the questions for option 1 that we've done so far. Where we've answered a question, there's a green tick. And where there's option 2, we've got green ticks as well. They're the generic questions that we answered at the start. You'll notice that where a question is not relevant because of the skip flow logic we use in constructing the ReAD-iT, it's blacked out, so you don't have to click on that to go back and link to it if the question is no longer relevant. Where the questions haven't been answered yet, you'll see all these red crosses. So that means we're going to have to go back and answer those questions. But for now, let's go back to this question and find out whether commencing or increasing option is consistent with your organization's strategic direction. I'm going to say yes, because our health service is very much interested in helping people with all manner of health complaints in our community. Question 11, is it consistent with your work unit's core business? Now, my work unit is an allied health program and providing services such as this to people with musculoskeletal conditions. Yes, it's certainly part of our core business. Question 13, will this option require additional resources over the duration of this decision? Well, we already have a hydrotherapy pool available down the road. The $30,000 would be used to hire a staff or to allocate a staff member for a certain number of hours per week to provide that program and to hire the hydrotherapy pool itself. So there are no additional resources required over the $30,000 that will be necessary to provide this service next year. Question 15, is there an ongoing source of funding that will be able to fully support the service in the longer term? At present, yes, we're going to say yes, because the $30,000 is departmental funds. It's not a one-off grant that will require renewing each year. Question 16, please specify what this ongoing source of funding is. I'm just going to say departmental funds. Again, we had a $30,000 increase in our budget this year, which is quite nice. Question 17, what is the type of problem that this option primarily addresses? The problem primarily addressed is a specific health condition or issue, or the problem primarily addressed is a potentially modifiable determinant of health, or the problem addressed is one of the health service operations. So there are different types of problems that could be addressed. This one is primarily a health condition issue that the patients are facing. Question 18, describe this problem. Osteoarthritis which causes pain, functional limitation, and reduced quality of life. You'll see I've spelled limitation wrong. We've got a spell checker attached to this program, so that's quite handy. Question 19. How common is the problem in the community that we serve? It's important to make sure we're providing services that meet the community needs. So this is a question that's trying to gauge how much need there is for this service in the community. Well, osteoarthritis is a very common condition in our society, so it's likely to affect about 25 to 50% of our population during their lifetime. Which category do you feel best describes how severely the problem addressed by this option affects the individual? Now we've got some examples here of each of these different categories that might help you to understand the approach here. Certainly, if we try to find a match here, certainly osteoarthritis is not a transient condition, so it's permanent, and it is it can be up to as bad as a moderate condition. It's certainly not life-threatening, but it can really stop people from being able to walk around and move and be independent. Question 23. What is your judgment as to how well this problem is currently being addressed in your community? Well, there are a few programs out there already for managing people with osteoarthritis that are available, but certainly there's no hydrotherapy option in our local community, and although there's a few land-based services, that they're not, we don't feel they're particularly, we don't feel they're operating particularly well. So let's say it's being managed, but not optimally. Question 24. What are the important sources of evidence or data that have informed this judgment? Certainly we've seen a large increase in waiting lists for land-based services from this population in the past 5 years. And a lot of the feedback, it has been informal, largely informal feedback from community. So we've received telephone inquiries and other inquiries about whether we'll be commencing a greater range of services for this population. Question 25. In ideal circumstances, based upon the evidence, what's your judgment of how effective this option could be in addressing this problem? Well, a hydrotherapy program is something which can be quite useful for managing pain and disability in this population. We've got some research evidence that we've pulled up and trying to answer this question in terms of systematic review that's being conducted and a meta-analysis that's being conducted that shows that aquatic exercise versus no treatment control has led to a small improvement in pain at the end of the intervention period that favours the aquatic exercise group. So this particular paper is from Hall et al. It's a reasonably recent paper, 2008, but it is a systematic review of relevant trials and has provided a reasonable amount of information here. However, compared to land-based programs, there doesn't seem to be a large finding in favour of the hydrotherapy. So what I might do is when I go back to the ReAD-iT say it appears to be somewhat effective. It doesn't appear to have a large effect size, it seems to be somewhat effective.